There is a category of prescription medication that most men over 50 are taking right now, some of them without knowing what category it belongs to, that the peer-reviewed literature links to a 30 to 50% higher risk of developing dementia. These are not obscure experimental drugs. They are some of the most commonly prescribed and most commonly purchased over-the-counter medications in the world. They work by blocking a specific chemical messenger in your brain, and the dietary choices you make every day either compound that damage or actively protect against it. Before I go further, drop a comment below and tell me which medications you are currently taking. I read every single one. The age and health picture of this audience shapes what I cover next. Now let me show you exactly what is happening inside your brain. Here is the structure of this video. First, I'm going to explain the specific brain chemical being depleted, because once you understand what it does, everything else will make sense. Then I am going to walk through the specific medications that deplete it and why most men over 50 are taking at least one of them right now without knowing what it is doing to their brain. Then the second half is the 5 animal foods that actively rebuild the same chemical pathway these medications are destroying. The research behind those 5 foods is some of the strongest nutritional brain science published in the last 2 years. The chemical messenger is called acetylcholine. It is one of the most critical neurotransmitters in the human body and one of the least discussed outside of medical school. Acetylcholine is the chemical your brain uses to form new memories. Every time you learn something new, a name, a face, a route, a piece of information, acetylcholine is what allows your hippocampus to encode that experience and file it away for later retrieval. Without it, the encoding does not happen. The experience passes through and leaves no trace. Acetylcholine also controls your ability to sustain focus and attention. It regulates the speed at which your brain processes information and the clarity with which you can retrieve what you already know. When a man over 50 says his thinking feels slower, that words are harder to find, that he walks into a room and cannot remember why, acetylcholine is almost always somewhere in that picture. Here's the problem nobody tells you about aging. From your 50s onward, your brain naturally produces less acetylcholine with each passing decade. The neurons that manufacture it, called cholinergic neurons, begin to die off slowly, and the ones that remain become less efficient at synthesis. This is one of the primary biological mechanisms behind the cognitive changes most men attribute to normal aging. It is a real biological process, but it is not inevitable. It has a rate, and that rate can be accelerated or slowed by what you eat and what medications you take. The medications are called anticholinergics. The name tells you exactly what they do. Against. Cholinergic, the acetylcholine system. These drugs work by blocking acetylcholine from binding to its receptor. That blocking action is what makes them effective for the conditions they treat. An overactive bladder stops sending urgent signals, allergies calm, anxiety and insomnia respond to the sedation the drug produces. The problem is your brain uses the exact same receptors. And every day you take one of these medications, you are actively suppressing the same chemical messenger your brain is already losing with age. Here is the specific research. A November 2025 study published in Age and Aging combined data from 125,260 UK biobank participants and 92,047 US All of Us research program participants in over 217,000 people, and confirmed that taking any of 88 listed anticholinergic drugs was significantly associated with increased dementia risk. A separate 2024 case control study in the British Medical Journal using 170,742 dementia patients and 804,385 controls found that strong anticholinergic drugs used regularly for months or years were associated with a 30 to 50% higher risk of dementia in older adults. Here is the list. First, overactive bladder medications. Oxybutynin sold as ditropan or oxytrol. Toltrodine sold as Detrol. Solifenacin sold as Vesicare. These are consistently identified as among the highest risk anticholinergic drugs for dementia. Oxybutynin crosses into brain tissue easily and parks itself directly in the memory-forming regions of the hippocampus. Second, diphenhydramine. This is the active ingredient in Benadryl. It is also the active ingredient in most over-the-counter sleep aids in the United States. Zizquil, Unisom, Tylenol PM, Advil PM. Most men reaching for a Benadryl at night have no idea they are taking a classified strong anticholinergic. It appears on the American Geriatric Society Beers criteria, the formal list of medications considered potentially inappropriate for older adults, specifically because of its dementia risk. Third, tricyclic antidepressants. Amitriptyline sold as Elavil. imipramine sold as tofranil, nortriptyline sold as Pamelor, still widely prescribed for nerve pain, migraine prevention, and sleep. A JAMA internal medicine study following more than 3,400 adults aged 65 and older over 10 years found those with the highest cumulative exposure to drugs like amitriptyline had a 54% greater risk of developing dementia. Fourth, muscle relaxants including cyclobenzaprine sold as Flexeril. Fifth, anti-nausea medications including promethazine sold as Phenergan. The danger compounds when multiple anticholinergic medications are taken simultaneously, what researchers call anticholinergic burden. A 2022 study in Age and Aging tracked more than 280,000 older adults and found those with the highest total anticholinergic burden had a 120% higher risk of dementia within 10 years, more than double. And the overwhelming majority had no idea they were taking anticholinergic medications at all. No one had explained it to them. I want to be absolutely clear before we move to the nutrition. I am not telling you to stop taking any medication. That decision belongs to your doctor. What I am telling you is that this research exists, it is robust, it is recent, and most men over 50 have never been told about it. Bring it to your next appointment. Ask your doctor to calculate your total anticholinergic burden. That conversation could be the most important medical conversation you have this year. Now here's the part nobody else is connecting to this research. While the conversation about anticholinergic medications and dementia is happening in geriatric medicine journals, the conversation about which specific foods actively rebuild the acetylcholine pathway these medications are depleting is happening in nutrition research journals. And almost nobody is putting those two conversations in the same room. That changes right now. You are halfway through. The first half showed you what acetylcholine does, why it declines naturally after 50, which specific medications accelerate that decline by 30 to 50%, and in some cases more than double it when multiple anticholinergic drugs stack up. The second half is the 5 animal foods, one at a time, mechanism first, research second, exactly how to use it third. Food 1, eggs. Whole eggs, yolk included, cooked fresh, never reheated. This is the single most direct nutritional intervention available for acetylcholine production. The mechanism, acetylcholine is synthesized in your brain from a compound called choline. Without adequate dietary choline, your brain cannot make enough acetylcholine regardless of how healthy the neurons are. The choline has to come from food, and approximately 90% of Americans do not meet the recommended daily intake for choline, according to the National Institutes of Health. The Rush Memory and Aging Project, published in the Journal of Nutrition in 2024, examined 578 deceased participants whose brains were autopsied. Consuming more than 1 egg per week was associated with a 47% lower risk of Alzheimer's dementia. Brain tissue from regular egg consumers showed measurably lower Alzheimer-related protein pathology at autopsy. Mediation analysis showed that 39% of the total protective effect was specifically mediated through dietary choline, the same compound anticholinergic medications are working against. A cohort study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2025, involving 125,594 participants followed over 11 years, confirmed that moderate daily choline intake was associated with significantly lower odds of dementia and better cognitive performance across multiple domains. A large egg provides approximately 150 milligrams of choline. 2 eggs per day gets you into the protective range. The yolk is where virtually all the choline is concentrated. Men who eat egg whites only are leaving behind the exact compound their brain needs most. Food 2, fatty fish, sardines, salmon, mackerel, herring. At least 2 to 3 servings per week. This is the DHA connection. DHA is the primary structural fat of the neuron membrane. When DHA levels are adequate, the membrane around the acetylcholine receptor is fluid and flexible. The receptor changes shape to receive the signal efficiently. When DHA is depleted and membranes stiffen, the receptor cannot respond properly even when acetylcholine is present. You can have the key. But if the lock is stiff and rusted, the door still does not open. The research on DHA and cognitive protection is among the most replicated in nutritional neuroscience. A meta-analysis incorporating 48 longitudinal studies involving 103,651 participants found that dietary DHA was associated with a 20% reduction in risk of all-cause dementia or cognitive decline. Each additional 0.1 gram per day of DHA was associated with an 8 to 10% lower risk. A 2024 randomized controlled trial in JAMA Network Open found that high-dose omega-3 supplementation in APOE4 carriers, the highest genetic risk group for Alzheimer's disease, maintained neuronal integrity on MRI and slowed white matter lesion development compared to placebo. Canned sardines provide between 1 and 2 grams of combined EPA and DHA per can, more marine omega-3 per dollar than any other food on the market. 3 servings per week delivers the DHA your neuron membranes need to keep acetylcholine receptor function at its highest level. This is the food that directly counteracts the membrane stiffening that makes anticholinergic-related acetylcholine depletion more damaging. Food 3. Beef liver, even 1 serving per week. 3 ounces contains 356 milligrams of choline, 2/3 of the daily adequate intake for men in a single serving. It contains vitamin B12 at concentrations essentially impossible to match from any other dietary source. B12 deficiency is independently associated with cognitive decline and measurable brain atrophy in older adults through a mechanism separate from acetylcholine. It drives elevated homocysteine, which is directly neurotoxic at high levels. Beef liver also contains folate, riboflavin, zinc, copper, and the full B vitamin complex in their most bioavailable forms, supporting the methylation pathways required for neurotransmitter synthesis across every system your brain runs on. Think of liver as the nutrient-dense reset for every pathway your brain depends on simultaneously. 1 serving per week delivers more brain-protective nutrition than any supplement stack at any price. If you cannot tolerate the taste, blend it raw into ground beef at a 1:4 ratio, completely undetectable, full nutritional profile preserved. Food 4. Bone broth, beef or chicken bones, simmered for at least 12 hours. Bone broth is the richest practical dietary source of glycine, an amino acid produced from the breakdown of collagen during long simmering. Glycine is a required precursor for glutathione, your brain's primary internal antioxidant. Oxidative stress is one of the 3 primary drivers of cholinergic neuron death. When glycine is insufficient, your brain antioxidant defense drops, the cholinergic neurons become more vulnerable to inflammation and oxidative damage, and acetylcholine production declines faster than it would with adequate glycine on board. Glycine also directly modulates NMDA receptors, the glutamate receptors involved in learning and memory, in a way that supports synaptic plasticity. 1 cup of quality bone broth contains approximately 3 grams of glycine, enough to meaningfully support both your brain antioxidant defense and its synaptic signaling machinery. This is the glycine connection from earlier in this series applied directly to the cholinergic system. Food 5. Beef, for 2 specific compounds that virtually no brain health discussion addresses. The first is carnitine. Carnitine is found almost exclusively in red meat and plays a critical role in the energy metabolism of neurons. Your cholinergic neurons are among the most energy-demanding cells in your body. Carnitine carries long-chain fatty acids into the mitochondria for energy production. When dietary carnitine is depleted, which happens in men who significantly reduce or eliminate red meat, the energy supply to cholinergic neurons falls. Synthesis drops. The neurons become more vulnerable to the age-related and medication-related damage covered in the first half of this video. The second compound in beef is zinc. A 2024 meta-analysis confirmed that zinc deficiency is significantly associated with increased dementia risk and accelerated cognitive decline in older adults. Zinc is required for multiple enzymatic steps in acetylcholine synthesis and receptor function. The zinc in beef is absorbed at approximately 4 times the rate of plant-derived zinc, because plant zinc is bound to phytates that block absorption. For men over 50 with marginal zinc intake and cholinergic neurons already under pressure, that absorption difference is the difference between the system working and the system failing. Before I close, if anything in this video connects to medications you or someone you love is currently taking, drop a comment below. Tell me what you are on and I will respond personally. And tell me if you have noticed any changes in your memory, your word finding, or your processing speed in the last few years. Here is the daily protocol for acetylcholine protection after 50. Every day, 2 to 3 whole eggs cooked fresh in butter, approximately 300 milligrams of choline, the direct raw material for acetylcholine synthesis. 3 times per week minimum fatty fish, sardines, salmon, or mackerel for the DHA that keeps your neuron membranes flexible enough to receive the signal efficiently. Once per week, 3 to 4 ounces of beef liver, 356 milligrams of choline plus B12 folate, and the full B complex that powers every neurotransmitter pathway simultaneously. Every day, 1 cup of bone broth for glycine and cholinergic neuron antioxidant protection. At every meal, beef for carnitine, zinc, and the complete amino acid profile that powers acetylcholine synthesis. This does not require counting anything. It requires eating these 5 foods consistently. Running these 5 foods consistently does not reverse damage that anticholinergic medications may already have done. What the research shows is that dietary choline, DHA, and the cofactors that support acetylcholine synthesis measurably support the cholinergic neurons that remain and may slow the progression of cognitive decline in men losing acetylcholine capacity through both natural aging and medication burden simultaneously. The Rush study showing 47% lower Alzheimer dementia risk from regular egg consumption was conducted in normal aging adults living normal lives, not in a population that never took medications or experienced stress. The protective effect of dietary choline was present and measurable against the full backdrop of everything real life throws at an aging brain. This connects to everything we have built on this channel. The insulin resistance video explained why metabolic dysfunction in the brain accelerates cognitive aging. Insulin resistance impairs the same mitochondrial energy production your cholinergic neurons depend on. The vitamin D video explained why receptor signaling is impaired even in men who eat well. Vitamin D receptors are expressed throughout the cholinergic system. The magnesium video explained why most men over 50 are deficient in a mineral required for neurotransmitter synthesis. The 6 Habits video showed that resistance training improves BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factors (SUC), which directly supports cholinergic neuron survival. The Reheating video showed that cooking in seed oils generates aldehydes that contribute to the neuroinflammatory load your cholinergic neurons fight every day. Feed it the choline it needs to make acetylcholine. Give it the DHA that makes the receptor capable of receiving the signal. Supply the glycine that protects the neurons doing the manufacturing. Provide the carnitine and zinc that power the synthesis machinery. And if you are taking a medication from the list in the first half, bring it to your doctor. Ask about your total anticholinergic burden. Ask whether alternatives exist. You now know enough to ask the right question. I am Josh. This is Created Carnivore. Real food does not have an ingredient list.